Hello and welcome to episode number 7 of Dax of Adiron. I hope you're having a good day. My name is Corey, and as you can see, I got an early start on this hike up Wright Peak, the 16th tallest high peak in the Adirondack Park. I got here early because here is the Adirondack Lodge, the same Adirondack Lodge that I hiked Phelps from. And since the trail I'm hiking begins in the exact same place, it didn't seem like showing the first section of the trail in daylight was overly important. Wright Peak was named by our old friend Verplanck Colvin. He named the peak after Silas Wright, who served as a New York State Comptroller, governor, and even represented New York in both the House and the Senate in the early to mid-1800s. The northernmost peak in what's known as the McIntyre Range, Wright Peak stands at 4,587 feet. As I said, I started at the Van Hovenberg Trail like before, but instead of turning southeast to Marcy Dam, I'll go straight at the intersection and onto the Algonquin Trail, which will lead me on a nearly 2-mile trek up the northwestern slope, and then I'll turn east to Wright Peak, gaining 2,582 feet in elevation and hiking 3.5 miles one way. I brought mostly basic equipment with me for this one: a day pack, 100 ounces of water, a bag of almonds with a few granola bars, my camera equipment, and even though I'm wearing shorts, I brought a warm windbreaker and a winter beanie, or as they're called up here, a toque. Personally, I like to call them peregrine toques, obviously because wearing one makes you look like a falcon. At 10 after 6 in the morning, the temperature was only 45, but today was going to be one of the warmest days in October, and it would eventually reach all the way up to 82. I was moving with a purpose this morning and got to the Marcy Dam Trail intersection within about 20 minutes. You may notice that there are lots of leaves on the trail this morning. Believe it or not, I did this hike only 3 days after I hiked Big Slide with my cousin, which just goes to show how quickly the leaves fall once they get started. It won't be long after this hike that all the leaves will be on the ground, preparing the Adirondacks for another winter cycle. By 6:45, the sun was above the horizon. Or it would have been if there weren't mountains in the way. If you've ever been hunting or camping in your life, you'll know that listening to the forest wake up in the morning can be a really nice experience if you're paying attention. My nose was running since the temperature was still low, which forced me to turn into a straight-up mouth breather. Still, I stopped every now and then to catch a few bird and chipmunk calls. Both are dutifully getting ready for the winter. What's that, I hear you say? Don't birds fly south during the winter, Corey? The short answer is yes, and no. Some birds do fly south, like geese or ducks, but there are many kinds of birds who spend their entire lives here in northern New York. There are also some birds that fly down from Canada to spend their winters here. And speaking of another winter cycle, great segue, Corey, for all you backcountry skiing aficionados, Wright Peak is a popular destination for it. I personally haven't done any skiing in a long time, but from what I've heard, there are several fun and challenging ski trails coming off this peak. I came across one of them here. There's a sign marking this intersecting trail for skiing only. I'm not sure where exactly the trail begins, though. There are several other notable features on this section of the trail. The first one is this rock escarpment. It juts out of the side of the mountain like a massive rock iceberg, hiding its true size beneath the dirt and trees. Shortly after that, I came to a giant rock waterfall called McIntyre Falls. There isn't a ton of water flow right now, but I have to assume that most of 2023 saw significantly more water coming down these rocks. I imagine this would be a real nice spot in the summertime. As I make my way up the last half mile before the Wright trailhead, I'd like to give you some small insight into the mountains themselves. Now, saying this information is watered down would be the understatement of the millennia. So, I apologize to you if you're a geologist, because you'll probably be smacking your head. Now, from what I've learned, geologically speaking, this mountain range is unique. Where most ranges form in something of a line, the Adirondacks bulge from the earth in a 6 million acre circle that you can see easily from satellite photos. The Rocky Mountains out west, which are much taller, began rising somewhere around 80 million years ago. The Adirondacks as we see them today only began rising about 10 million years ago. But the rocks that make up the Dacks were formed eons ago. We're talking some of the oldest rocks on the planet. The mountain range is still rising at an average rate of 2 millimeters a year, which means that in just my minuscule lifetime, the Dacks have risen by over 3 inches. And this doesn't account for erosion, of course, but suffice it to say that they're growing faster than they're eroding, and they will continue to do so for quite some time yet. Coming up along the east side of the mountain range, the trail becomes narrow at times, making my steps awkward over the exposed rock. I've learned that because the mountains formed so recently, again, geologically speaking, they didn't get a lot of time to accumulate topsoil. There is typically only a few feet of soil on the mountains, which is why some of them have exposed, windswept peaks like Wright and Algonquin. Some have massive slides where huge swaths of forests are ripped off the sides of the steeper slopes on mountains like Giant and Big Slide. Or wildfires irreparably destroy huge swaths of vegetation on peaks like Cascade. Now again, this is all bare bones information with quite a bit of generalizing, so, do a little of your own research before bringing up this stuff at parties. The final 0.4 miles to the peak starts here, with a turnoff from the Algonquin Trail. Several signs are posted right away that are warning that the weather from this point on can be unpredictable and can change quickly. This is why I brought the jacket and peregrine toque, because just beyond this steep and narrow rock section, the vegetation almost disappears. This exposed me to a force of wind strong enough to almost knock me off balance. But step by step, I fought the wind and the steep open rock slope. Until after only 2.5 hours, I crested Wright Peak, victorious. It wasn't even 10 a.m. yet, so the sun was still in the process of rising in the sky, and it made for some spectacular views with the clouds still low, particularly when looking towards the number 2 high peak, Algonquin. When I first imagined hiking the high peaks, this view was more of what I had in mind of what the peaks would look like. Beautiful and treacherous. Speaking of, in 1962, a B-47 bomber on a training run ran into bad weather and crashed into the northwestern slope of Wright Peak, just tens of feet below the summit. You can still see the crash debris today, and they even erected a plaque in commemoration of the 4 crew members who died in the crash. I can tell you that this would have been excellent information to know before I went on the hike, because I didn't see it at all. I guess that just means I'll have to come back again. Thank you so much for checking out my video. If you enjoyed it, please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons, and don't forget the bell icon so you'll know when a new adventure is posted. Join me next time in the Dacks of Adirondack.